Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing anticipated fall Romantasy releases. Alright guys, so this is going to be a bit of a longer video. I have slightly under 30 fantasy romance and romantasy books to add to your TBR. Now, all of these books are releasing in September, October, or November, and they are perfect for spooky season. So we have some gothic romantasies, some cozy fantasy romance books, and a bunch of other books that kind of have that fall vibe. Now, I will give you a brief plot synopsis of every book, and I will also have the release dates down in the description below, as well as links if you would like to purchase the book. And I am so excited, but we have a lot of books to cover, so let's get into it. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these anticipated fall fantasy romance releases. Alright guys, so starting off with books releasing in September. On September 1st, we have Kingdom of Tomorrow. Now, this is an adult fantasy romance, and I will say, although the plot sounds really interesting, there is a lot going on. So in the story, we are following Arden, and Arden lives in a fractured world, and at night, there is a night virus that turns innocent people into killers. So Arden is just trying to survive, and one day she stumbles upon a book that seems to be written about her life. I believe it's titled The Life of Arden. And because of this discovery, she then has to go to an academy where she's paired with a high prince, and a romance begins to blossom between the two of them. But while that's going on, she is also trying to survive these war trials and begins to be inducted into a secret society of guardians that all have these prophetic tomes written about them, and they believe they can discover the truth of this world. So, once again, all of it sounds great. I just feel like there is a lot going on, but definitely a book I want to pick up when it releases. And releasing on September 2nd, we have A Land So Wide by Erin A. Craig. This is an adult gothic fantasy romance following Greer. Now, Greer Mackenzie is trapped in the town known as Mistaken. Now, this town is protected by these magical wardstones that keep out creatures like bears, wolves, but also these monsters known as Bright Eyes. Now, Greer is totally fine living this life, although she is never permitted to leave, which is the only kind of downside to living in Mistaken. But one day, the love of her life ends up crossing the boundary, and Greer, desperate to save him, ends up following. And because of this, she then finds out all of these truths about Mistaken and all of the lies she's been told, and it kind of goes from there. So I read Erin A. Craig's YA gothic book, House of Salt and Sorrow, so many years ago, but that book sticks with me. It was so creepy, the imagery in that book. There is a bathtub scene involving a ghost that I just remember I was so freaked out. So if her writing is like that in a young adult fantasy romance, I can't imagine how good her adult debut is going to be. So this is one of my most anticipated releases of September. And releasing on September 9th, we have Song of the Hell Witch. Now, this was pitched as a group of women that are trying to take down an oppressive patriarchy, so that alone, I was sold. But honestly, it sounds awesome. So we are following this girl that used to be a street rat, but now has clawed her way up in society and is now a duchess. So all she has to do is keep her monstrous magic a secret and listen to her husband. Apparently, that doesn't go so well. So her magic ends up being exposed, and she enlists the help of a love from her past. Now, he has his own things going on. So the love from her past is a thief, and he has a daughter. His daughter is dying of a mysterious illness, and he believes there is a cure in another kingdom. Now, this other kingdom happens to be a kingdom that allows women to use their magic freely. So both the Duchess and this thief, along with his child, are going to travel or essentially flee to this kingdom and try to find freedom. And I believe it's us kind of following that journey. But Oh my gosh, I am so ready for this book, and I had no idea it was releasing until I was like mapping this video out. So another book I will definitely be reading in September. And also releasing on September 9th, we have Eldritch, which is the sequel to Anathema by Keri. I believe the duology is called the Eating Woods duology, but oh my gosh, Anathema was one of my top reads of the year, and if you are looking for like a gothic and super creepy read, it is absolutely perfect. So if you're unfamiliar with Anathema, we are following this girl named Maeve who was found in this very like patriarchal and just kind of terrible society when she was a baby outside the Eating Woods. Now the Eating Woods is this super scary place that anyone that enters ends up perishing, so they kind of use it as like their place of punishment. Well, Maeve's sister ends up being forced to go into the Eating Woods, so Maeve ends up following her. And when she gets in there, she ends up in another realm and she meets this assassin known as the Scorpion. And I loved this book so much, and I had no idea it was part of a duology when I started. I actually thought it was a standalone, so I was very disappointed when I got to the end and was like, oh no, there is no HEA. So hopefully the second one will have one, and I cannot wait to pick it up. And next up, we have Alchemised by SenLinYu. So this is releasing on September 23rd. It is an adult, dark fantasy romance. And in the story, we are following Helena. Now, Helena was once a gifted alchemist, but she has lost the war and is now being held prisoner by these evil necromancers. And it seems like her memories have been wiped. So she ends up being given over to the High Reeve, and in the hopes that she will somehow recover her lost memories. And while this is going on, apparently there is like the undead running around or other necromancers and things like that. Now, I am sure a lot of you are familiar with the fact that this was once manacled by SenLinYu. The book has had all of the nods to, I feel like I have pitched this exact same thing so many times this year. It has had all of the nods to a certain boy wizard removed and has been trad published. There is so much controversy going on with all of that. I'm not even going to touch upon that. What I am slightly concerned about is this, I feel like, is going to have a similar issue that Rose in Chains did, where it doesn't seem like she's changing the plot of this book very much from the original. So I am going to hold my judgment until I actually read this book, and I am very, very excited to read this book. It is one of my most anticipated releases. Feels like an early birthday present to myself. But I am slightly leery that now reading the plot synopsis, it sounds so much like Manacled. I'm also not really sure why we didn't change High Reeve. That might actually be an error from Goodreads, but I have no idea. So anyway, I am very excited to read this book. I will be vlogging this book, and I plan on reading this book the day it drops, but I do have some slight concerns. And also releasing on September 23rd, we have Spellcaster. Now, this is apparently a slow burn enemies to lovers romantasy, and we're following our main character who finds out that she actually has this volatile magic, and because of this, she is told she is going to attend a certain like witch university. Now, she is very worried that she's not going to live up to her family's legacy, and things become even more complicated when she ends up running into the son of her father's greatest enemy. Well, when monsters start entering the school and just dangerous things start occurring, she is going to be forced to team up with someone that she has been told her entire life she should not trust. And once again, all of that, I am so ready. And also releasing on September 23rd, I just realized there are 4 books on this list releasing on that date. We have What Fury Brings by Trisha Levenseller. Now, apparently this is a dark gothic romantasy. I've read other books by this author in the past, and I feel like I've rated them kind of like mid-range, normally around 3 stars, so I'm a little bit worried to pick this up. But apparently this is following a warrior princess that lives in a matriarchal society where in order to gain your crown, the princess has to kidnap a prince from another kingdom. So our main character, Sierra, has her sights on this like very sweet prince. And when she goes to kidnap him, she doesn't realize that this prince has switched places with his very gruff brother and now is going to be forced to marry this man. And it's their romance. So I'm not exactly sure what like the dark aspect is, but it does say dark romantasy on Goodreads. So I am intrigued. If anyone has read an arc of this, please let me know what they think. This is sitting at like a 3.8 on Goodreads right now, so not terrible, but also not amazing. And like I've said, I'm kind of leery about this author because I feel like her books, while I enjoy them, while I read them, they're not exactly like a standout. The Shadows Between Us is like the book I'm thinking of, and I didn't like that. I just didn't love it. So let me know if you've read this, what did you think? And yet another book releasing on September 23rd, we have The Second Death of Locke. Now in this story, we are following Gray, and Gray has sworn her sword to her mage, Kier. So she is his protector, his healer, and just absolutely devoted to him. But when an enemy child ends up thrusting them even deeper into a brutal war, Kier's and Gray's secret might be exposed. Well, mostly Gray's secret might be exposed. She is actually the heir to Locke, which is this island, and if she dies, all magic will die along with her. So I cannot wait. I literally just added this book because I thought the cover was stunning, but now reading the plot, I need this book immediately. So another one of my most anticipated releases. All right, guys, so moving into October, there are a bunch of books releasing on October 7th. First up, we have The Ascended. Now, this is the start of a new adult romantasy series, and in it, we are following Theus. Now, Theus has been hiding the fact that she has the magical ability to transform starlight into weapons. That is until a divine ritual uncovers her god secret, or her, like, divinity. So because of this, she then has to go to the Ascended trials, or she'll be forced to use her powers in order to survive. Now, while this is going on, she ends up being partnered with a necromancer prince, and I believe it's going to be a bit of an enemies to lovers dynamic, but she's also trying to get revenge on the gods that she believes are responsible for killing her family. So another one that sounds really, really good. I love any sort of romantasy that features trials. It's like one of my absolute favorites. So I cannot wait to read this in October. And also releasing on October 7th, we have The Damned, which is the third book in the Coven of Bones series by Harper L. Woods. Now, a few things about this. One, I 100% thought The Coven and the sequel were a duet. I did not realize they were going to be a series. I have no idea how many books are going to be in this series. I absolutely loved The Coven when I read it. I read it when it first released. It is a witchy, gothic fantasy romance that uses elemental magic. It also has that forbidden romance feel and also kind of like student-teacher age gap. So I absolutely loved it. Now, I never picked up this second book. At the time, I had ordered a special edition of The Coven from a company. I am still waiting for said special edition. I ordered it in May of 2023, and I think that is insane that I still have not received it. So every time I go to pick up this second book, I honestly find myself getting annoyed, and I feel bad because it has nothing to do with the author. It's this certain book company that's kind of notorious for this, but still, I will eventually continue with this series. I am just waiting for this special edition to get here. Apparently it's getting delivered soon. They've been saying it for years, so we will see. But anyway, if you have been waiting for the third book in this series to release, it is finally coming out on October 7th. And also releasing on October 7th, we have Vesselless. Now, in this, we are following the heir to a kingdom who ends up entering these deadly trials in order to escape an unwanted betrothal. But when she gets there, she realizes that she is going to have to fight not only monsters, but the darkness inside herself. And in order to survive, she ends up teaming up with the half-ghost king, who also happens to be someone that her father had previously killed and has bargained with the god of death, so somehow he is able to help her. I'm assuming it's going to be a romance between the two of them. Now, as soon as I saw this cover, I realized this has to be a re-release. I'm almost positive I talked about this book in my upcoming winter romantasy books a few months ago. So I'm thinking this was an indie release that has now been picked up by a trad pub and is re-releasing in October. But either way, let me know if you've read this. The plot sounds pretty good. I don't think I know anyone who has picked this up yet, so I am very, very curious. And the last book releasing on October 7th is also most definitely a re-release. So we have Halle by Karina Halle. Now this is a Headless Horseman reimagining, and I remember a bunch of my friends reading this, I believe last year. So I don't know if that's when it released, but I know it was super popular last year. And I believe it's the first book in a duet. And in the story, we are following Kat, who ends up training, I believe, like as a witch, and then she ends up having a crush on the newest professor, who is named Ichabod Crane. And then as that's going on, her long-lost love, Bram, ends up showing up, but he has been changed, and the three of them have to navigate all of these murders that are going on with the Headless Horseman. And I have so many friends that have absolutely loved this duet, so I know it is going to be amazing. Unfortunately, there are no signs of an audiobook in production. I know sometimes Karina Halle can take a while to release her audiobooks with her physical books, so hopefully one releases this fall. And jumping all the way to October 28th, we have Our Vicious Oaths. Now, this is an adult romantasy following Princess Kadisha. Now, she wants nothing to do with politics. Unfortunately, her betrothal to the ruthless High King is making that impossible. Well, the night before her wedding night, she ends up having a bit of a romantic moment with a stranger, only to discover he is actually Malachi, the prince of a fallen kingdom. So their wedding day ends up erupting into bloodshed. I'm assuming her betrothed finds out about her one-night stand, and she is going to have to decide if she is going to do what her duty tells her to, or if she is going to follow her heart. And I am ready. I have definitely never read anything by this author before, but when I saw this on Goodreads, I immediately added it to this list. So let me know if you've read this author, but another book I am really looking forward to. And also releasing on October 28th, we have A Curse of Shadow and Ice. This is a Beauty and the Beast reimagining following Arabella. In order to save her kingdom, Arabella is forced into a marriage with the Shadow Emperor Felix. Now, she ends up striking a bargain with Felix. She will help break the curse that has been placed upon him if she or if he will grant her her freedom. Now, as Arabella learns about her magic and Felix teaches her how to use it, a romance begins to blossom between the two of them. So I just realized this is by Catharina Maura, who is one of my favorite contemporary romance authors. I had no idea she wrote Romantasy. I don't know if this is her like fantasy romance debut, but I am really curious. Once again, I absolutely love her books. Like the entire Wrong Bride series, I binge that. So I cannot wait for this to release, and I'm surprised more people aren't talking about this. And also releasing on October 28th, and one of my most anticipated releases of the year, we have Bonds of Hercules, which is the sequel to Blood of Hercules by Jasmine. This is a why choose fantasy romance filled with dark humor and a sassy snake companion, and it was one of my top reads of last year. I'm obsessed. I have been dying for this book to come out. So this is getting read on release day. But if you have not read Blood of Hercules, one, please pick it up if you love dark romance and why choose. It is my favorite. But in this, we are following Alexis, and Alexis lives in a world where the Titans have kind of taken over, and the only beings that are able to stop the Titans are Spartans who are descended from gods. So Alexis is living a pretty terrible life. Her adoptive parents are like very, very cruel and abusive. And as she grows up, she eventually takes this test that ends up designating her as being part Spartan. So she's immediately whisked away to this like Spartan war college where she has to fight to the death in the hopes to survive. And then she'll be granted a mentor or two. And it goes from there. But oh my gosh, I love this book so, so much. So I am so, so excited for Bonds of Hercules to release. Once again, one of my top releases of the year. And last up for October, also releasing on October 28th, we have The Changeling Queen. Now, this was inspired by the folktale of Tam Lin. I believe it's a Scottish folktale. I am not familiar with that story, but the plot synopsis says that we are following this pregnant woman named Janet who is trying to save her lover, Tam Lin, from being sacrificed during the wild hunt. And it seems like she's successful until the Fae Queen shows up and realizes that mortals are fickle creatures and is going to try to kill Tam Lin anyway. So we find out a bit about the Fae Queen's past, while also, I think, following what is happening currently. So it might be dual timeline, but either way, I 100% added this because I thought the cover was gorgeous. And then after reading the plot, it sounds excellent. So another book I hope to read this fall. And finally, moving into November, surprisingly, there's already been a lot of books announced for November. I feel like that's still kind of far out, but either way, first up on November 4th, we have A Ship of Spells. Now, there wasn't a lot going on with this plot synopsis, so there was only 2 lines. So apparently we were following a mage or someone who is training as a mage who is desperate to join the pirate crew of the ship that ended up saving her life. But first, she has to get the pirate captain to trust her along with his sentient pirate ship. As soon as I saw sentient pirate ship, I was all in for this. So this definitely seems like a book that might have been better if it released in the spring or the summer. I feel like the fall is not exactly when I want to pick up a pirate romance, but either way, the plot of this sounds really, really good. And also releasing on November 4th, we have Son of the Morning. Now, this was another book I added just because the cover was stunning, but now looking into the plot, it sounds pretty cool. We are following Gailey, who has always felt different but never understood why, until she runs into Lucifer Morningstar, who tells her she is not human at all. So now she is going to have to confront the fact that she has been lied to her entire life, and I believe she starts to have a romantic attraction to Lucifer, but even Lucifer's own people do not trust Gailey. So I believe Leviathan is out to try to get her before she can have this romance with Lucifer, and it's apparently a gothic, paranormal romantasy. I'm so excited for this one. So dropping on November 4th, and I cannot wait. And on November 11th, Between Two Kings, which is the sequel to Kiss of the Basilisk, part of the Spit and Swallow duology, will be releasing. Now, I have yet to read Kiss of the Basilisk, despite the fact I have had it on at least 3 different TBRs. The audiobook has released. I just was in the worst reading slump of my life in August, so I still have not picked it up. I am hoping to do so in the upcoming week. But either way, I know I'm going to want to read the sequel. If you're unfamiliar with Kiss of the Basilisk, I believe we are following a woman that is trying to somehow entice a prince, and she joins some sort of competition where she's partnered with a snake who has to teach her the art of seduction. And I think it's a romance between her, the snake, and the prince, and it's a whole thing. I've heard it's completely unhinged, and I've been dying to read it. So I definitely will be reading it in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, reading some really rough, guys. But anyway, another book releasing in November. And also releasing on November 11th, we have The Seventh Champion. Now, this story is following Rosie, who is living a quiet life as an apprentice to the ruthless High King, and is shocked to discover that she is actually a descendant of the demonic Dragon Queen, and also the last hope for this kingdom. So as her mysterious and hidden powers start to emerge, the High King decides that he will have to find a guard and also a husband for Rosie. So he ends up throwing these trials in the hopes of finding the most brutal protector and also husband for Rosie, and she wants absolutely nothing to do with this. So she enlists the help of a guard who once was promised to the demon or dragon queen for help, not realizing this is the same guard that when she was a baby failed at assassinating her. So they're going to have a very interesting talk on the way to flee this place. But either way, this is getting somewhat mixed reviews. I think it has a 3.7 at the time I am filming this, so I'm not exactly sure what ARC readers are thinking, but it sounds pretty epic. I will also note I was almost positive this was YA fantasy when I added it to this list, just going off the cover, but everything I'm seeing is adult. So if you know, please let me know down in the comments below. But either way, another book releasing in November. And next up is Given. This is a dark romantasy releasing on November 18th. Dark romantasy being my favorite type of romantasy. And this is following Ren. Now, Ren has been chosen to be sacrificed in the future, and she is totally okay with this, and she's just going about her life until she witnesses her best friend be sacrificed in the giving ritual. So this completely freaks her out, and she ends up running away, as she probably should, and she is pursued by this person that is trying to capture her and bring her back. Well, as she is journeying through the forest or wherever she has run to, she ends up coming across this stranger who is wounded, and she cares for him, helps to heal him, only to discover he is the person that is trying to capture her. Now, he has to decide if he has to fulfill his duty, or is he going to show mercy on this person that helped him. And I'm assuming it's their romance. I love everything about this story, so I'm so sad this isn't releasing until November, but either way, I will definitely be reading it when it drops. And on November 25th, Brimstone by Callie Hart is finally releasing. Brimstone being the sequel to Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Quicksilver essentially took over the romance community when it first dropped. It was Callie Hart's debut into Romantasy, and it is one of my favorite, like, fae enemies to lovers romances. Now, I can't really get into the plot of Brimstone, but if you have not read Quicksilver, we are following this girl that lives in, like, a desert kingdom or a desert realm as a thief, and she's eventually caught and is put into a pretty precarious situation where she almost dies, but before she can, like, bleed to death, a hole opens and this very attractive and brooding fae appears out of it, takes our main character, brings her to a completely different world, and says, hey, I believe you could have the power to control a certain type of sentient magic that could save my people, and I don't care if you don't want to help me, I'm gonna magically bind you to me, so you're forced to, and treat you kind of terribly at first, because I'm super brooding. But I loved Quicksilver. I do plan on doing a recap video before Brimstone releases, for those of you who do not want to do a reread. So look for that probably a few weeks before Brimstone comes out. And also releasing on November 25th, we have Dawn of Chaos and Fury. This is the conclusion to the Legacy series by Melissa K. Rorich, starting with Reign of Shadows and Endings. Now, this book was supposed to release over the summer. However, the Legacy series ended up being picked up by Kensington Publishing. So I'm so excited about that, and honestly, Melissa K. Rorich is very quickly becoming an all-time favorite Romantasy author, so she deserves the world, and I am so happy for her, but also so sad that this book got so delayed. So it is finally releasing in November. If you are unfamiliar with the Reign of Shadows and Endings or the Legacy series, we are following Tessa. Tessa lives in a world where the Fae are ruled over by the Legacy being descended from gods. Now, Tessa is a Fae, and when she goes to a choosing ceremony to be given a role in one of the 6 different Legacy houses, she is selected by the primal source of the House of Endings, or the Heir of Endings. So she does not want this position as a primal source because it is going to allow the heir to place these tattoos upon her that will allow him to sense her emotions, feel when she's near, and basically control her. Now, everyone in this world is trying to use Tessa for their own means, and really most of this series is Tessa just trying to gain her own freedom and autonomy, and I love this series with all of my heart. So if you have not read it yet, I'm actually hosting a read-along over on my Patreon. We are reading 1 book a month, ending with Dawn of Chaos and Fury in December. Oh my gosh, so good. Urban, dark, fantasy, romance, action, it is everything. So please join us if you have not read the series yet. Alright guys, those are all of my anticipated fall romantasies. Please let me know down in the comments below if there was any books that I forgot that are releasing in September, October, or November. And I'd like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Christy, Kat, Lotta, Leslie, and Nerdy. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.